You must begin with the end in mind, not the end in fear, not the end in uncertainty, but the end clothed in assurance. Imagine right now that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a script you are writing, and in this script, everything always works out for you. Not sometimes, not in rare moments of grace, but always. Every event bends toward your benefit. Every circumstance rearranges itself for your elevation. And even what seems like delay is simply preparation in disguise. You were never meant to be a victim of life. You are the author. You were never meant to react endlessly to circumstances. You were meant to create them. When you act as if everything always works out for you, you are not hoping, you are knowing. You walk into rooms expecting favor. You face obstacles with an inner calm because you know they are stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. The world begins to reflect your inner conviction. The mirror cannot reflect what the face refuses to show. You cannot plant a seed and keep doubting its growth. The gardener does not dig up the soil every day to check if the roots are taking hold. He waters it, he nourishes it, and he waits because he knows. That is the level of certainty you must bring to your imagination. Assume the result. Wear the feeling of everything working out. Let it sink into your bones until it becomes your natural response, until it is no longer something you practice. It is simply who you are. The person who walks by faith does not require proof. They live in the end. They feel the joy of a resolved problem, even while others still see chaos. They dance in celebration, while others mourn in doubt. Because to act as if everything works out for you is not delusion, it is creation. You're not ignoring facts, you're commanding them. You're not blind to reality, you are shaping it. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are aligning yourself with the truth that consciousness is the only reality, that what you accept within must be mirrored without. So if you can truly accept deeply and completely that life bends in your favor, then life must obey. The bridge of incidents will form, people will show up, conversations will unfold, doors will open, not because you forced them, but because you became the version of yourself for whom these things naturally happen. When something appears to go wrong, you don't panic, you persist. You return to the state of knowing. You return to the end where it already worked out. You walk through the storm holding the feeling of sunlight on your face, and in time the storm dissipates, and your inner world becomes your outer world. To act as if everything works out for you is to carry peace into battle, clarity into confusion, certainty into unknowns. It is to whisper to yourself in silence, I already have what I desire. I already am who I desire to be. And then watch as life rearranges itself, not in rebellion, but in obedience to your inner law. So don't just believe in miracles, expect them. Don't just visualize a better life, embody it. Don't just wish things were better, act as though they already are. Because the moment you accept that everything always works out is to occupy the state where your desire is already fulfilled, but to catch up. It is not a wishful stance nor a hopeful one. It is a knowing. It is the difference between longing for something and having it. And the mind, when properly disciplined, can create this internal certainty with such clarity that the outer world must conform to it. Living from the end is not about changing the world through effort. It is about changing yourself inwardly to the point where the world reflects your new state. When you truly dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your conversations change, your posture shifts, your expectations rise, and your energy becomes unmistakable. People feel it, opportunities sense it, and reality begins to rearrange itself accordingly. This inner stance is not something you turn on and off like a switch. It becomes your natural identity. You no longer say, I hope this happens, but instead, I'm thankful it already has. You begin to see yourself as someone who simply lives in the blessing. There's no begging, no bargaining with life. There's only calm authority, an inner calmness that flows from knowing how things end before they begin. Because when you dwell in the end, you know that the ending is certain. You feel the peace of answered prayer, even if the world hasn't yet delivered the package. It's already yours in consciousness, and what is yours in consciousness must become yours in form. People often get caught up in asking how something will happen, but when you live from the end, you never concern yourself with how. The how is never your domain. The how belongs to the unseen laws that govern this universe, and those laws respond only to your assumption, not your anxiety. When you live from the end, you understand that your only job is to feel the end as real, to see yourself there so vividly that the means to get there must arise naturally. You become like the actor who embodies a role so deeply, the performance is no longer acting. It is truth. You don't pretend to be wealthy, healed, loved, or successful. You simply walk, breathe, and exist in the assumption that you already are. Think of a person lost in a beautiful dream. In the dream, they walk the streets of a new city, feel the sun on their skin, hear the voices of people congratulating them, experience the joy of success or reunion. While dreaming, it all feels real. The body may still be in bed, but the soul is already there. This is the same principle. You live in the dream, not to escape reality, but to create it. Your outer life begins to organize itself around the internal dream, and over time, the dream hardens into fact. This is not fantasy, it is the law of life. You may look around and not yet see the evidence. Your bank account may not yet show the numbers. The people you wish to connect with may not have called. The health you imagine may not yet show in your body. But that's irrelevant. The truth is not what the senses report. The truth is what you've accepted as real within. The outer world is a mirror, delayed but faithful. It reflects what you hold inside. So when you live from the end, you're not waiting. You are aligning. You are tuning your soul to the station of fulfillment. And like a radio, you only hear what you're tuned into. Tune into disappointment, and life will echo it. Tune into gratitude for already having, and life will echo that. Living from the end requires discipline of attention. It means refusing to react to appearances. It means denying the evidence of the senses when they contradict your assumption. This is not denial of reality, but selection of reality. For in a world of infinite possibilities, the one you most persistently imagine is the one that manifests. You must remind yourself, again and again, that your world is not shaped by what you observe, but by what you accept. Acceptance is the key. When you accept a state as yours, you move into it effortlessly. And once you've moved into the state, the details fill in around you. Life fills in the blanks. People show up. Coincidences occur. You find yourself at the right place at the right time, saying the right thing. And it feels so natural that you may forget you ever imagined it first. Living from the end is also an act of detachment, not from your desire, but from the lack of it. You stop checking for signs. You stop questioning when it will happen. You stop comparing your journey to others. You walk as if it's already done. You smile for no reason. You breathe easier. You let go of the strain and step into the joy of the fulfilled version of yourself. You don't chase, you attract, because the fulfilled version of you does not chase. The fulfilled version of you is magnetic. It draws people, events, and circumstances that match the state. And this drawing power comes not from willpower, but from inner certainty. The world responds most powerfully to those who have nothing to prove. And when you live from the end, you become that kind of person. You no longer defend your worth. You no longer seek permission. You no longer wait for external validation. You are enough. You are whole. You are already there. And the world, as it must, adjusts itself to your assumption. You find that people start treating you differently, not because they've changed, but because your inner stance has. You see new doors open, not because you begged for them, but because you were already walking through them in imagination long before they appeared. So living from the end is not a practice you do once a day. It's a state you dwell in. It's not about repeating affirmations for a few minutes and returning to fear. It's about staying in the feeling of the end until it becomes so natural that anything contrary to it feels foreign. The moment you truly dwell in the end is the moment your inner world begins to command the outer. And from that place, all things must unfold, not as effort, but as expression of who you now are. Inner conviction is the quiet force that shapes everything. It is not loud, not boastful, not theatrical. It moves silently beneath the surface, yet it determines the entire flow of your life. What you deeply believe, what you accept without question, becomes the foundation of every experience you encounter. When you carry the unwavering assumption that everything always works out for you, this inner certainty starts to color how you walk, how you speak, how you interpret events, and how others respond to you. Reality, as solid as it may seem, is far more malleable than most realize. It does not operate independently of your inner world. It follows it. This is the great secret most never discover, that belief is not passive, it is creative. What you believe about yourself and your life forms the blueprint upon which reality is built. If you believe that you're unlucky, unsupported, or doomed to struggle, your world begins to echo that belief back to you in countless ways. It's not a punishment, it's a mirror. And when you shift the belief, when you begin to accept deeply and fully that everything is conspiring for your good, then the mirror must shift its reflection too. Not immediately, perhaps, but inevitably. Inner conviction rewrites outer reality because the outer is not the cause, it is the effect, and your dominant feeling, the persistent mood you carry, is the signal that informs what life must send back. People often wait for proof before they believe, but life doesn't work like that. Waiting to see something before believing it is like refusing to turn on a lamp until the room lights up by itself. The light of your belief comes first. It illuminates the path ahead, and if your inner world radiates the certainty that everything works out for you, life will have no choice but to align with that truth. Not because you manipulated it, but because you became one with the reality you desire. You moved into the state where all is well, and that state becomes your home. And as with any home, what you dwell in eventually defines you. It doesn't matter how many times things have gone wrong in your past. It doesn't matter how long you felt stuck. The past has no power unless you give it permission. The only thing that matters is what you accept as true right now. Right now, you can decide that from this moment forward, life bends toward your highest good. You can decide that your desires are valid, that your goals are achievable, and that your path is guided, even when you don't see how. And when that decision becomes a conviction, it starts to alter your emotional responses, your interpretations of setbacks, and your interactions with others. What once looked like a barrier now looks like a blessing in disguise. What once triggered anxiety now awakens trust. The world hasn't changed, you have. Inner conviction is not something you force. And so the world must reflect it is something you cultivate. It grows stronger every time you return to the vision of your fulfilled desire. Every time you feel it real, every time you assume it's done, every time you act from the state of already having it, it takes root deeper within you, and eventually it becomes so real on the inside that any lack of evidence on the outside no longer bothers you. You stop reacting, you stop explaining yourself, you stop needing validation. You rest in the knowing. You stop trying to figure it all out because you trust that it's already working out. And that trust becomes a magnet. It draws the exact circumstances, people, and opportunities that match your inner state. Some will call this delusion. They will say you're ignoring facts. But in truth, you're choosing which facts to energize. You're choosing which reality to invest your belief in. Because even facts are not final. They are temporary appearances shaped by prior assumptions. And what you assume now begins the creation of new facts. So why not assume the best? Why not walk in the conviction that the universe is rigged in your favor? Why not carry the sense that you are always in the right place at the right time, that every delay is divine timing, and that every closed door is redirection, not rejection? This is not a mindset you apply selectively. It is a life you embody. It's how you move through your day. You wake up expecting goodness. You go to sleep trusting that things are unfolding. You interpret detours as divine setups. You stop taking things personally because you know that what is truly yours cannot miss you. And even in moments of discomfort, you hold to your inner truth. Everything works out for me. Not because I'm lucky, not because I'm special in the eyes of the world, but because I've chosen to live in alignment with the reality I've imagined. I've chosen to assume that my life flows in harmony with my highest good. And that assumption is enough. The truth is, life will always reflect your strongest assumptions. And if you make the conviction that all things work in your favor, your dominant inner state, then the evidence will come, not to convince you, but to celebrate with you. You'll look around one day and realize that everything is different, not because the world changed first, but because you did. Your thoughts softened, your beliefs elevated, emotional tone shifted from fear to faith. And as your inner garden blossomed, so too did the outer. This is the sacred art of living with conviction, not blind faith but felt reality. It is the difference between hoping and knowing. And once you truly know, you no longer chase results. You rest in your inner certainty, and life, as it must, rises to meet you there. Persistence is the quiet strength that moves mountains, even when no one sees it happening. It is the invisible decision to remain loyal to your vision, even when your senses scream otherwise. When you walk in the assumption that everything always works out for you, the world might not immediately agree. It may present situations that seem contrary. It may offer delays, detours, or silence. But none of these appearances matter to the one who truly understands the power of persistence. Because you are not seeking evidence, you are creating it. You are not waiting for life to approve your dream. You are living from the conviction that it is already done. And in this space of inner authority, persistence is no longer effort. It becomes a form of alignment. Those who truly manifest the life they desire are not necessarily the most talented, lucky, or well-connected. They are the ones who persist in the unseen. They hold their inner stance, regardless of outer noise. They remain rooted in their belief, not because circumstances are favorable, but because they know the seed has already been planted. And they don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. They water it with faith, they shine light on it with gratitude, and they persist, not because they are forcing the outcome, but because they have already accepted it as real. When appearances contradict your desire, that is the moment your faith is tested. It's easy to believe when the signs are everywhere. But real transformation happens when nothing seems to support your belief, and you still choose to persist. You still choose to feel as though it's already done. You still walk with the same confidence, speak with the same assurance, and carry the same peace. Because to you, the end is already written. The outer world is simply catching up. Persistence is the refusal to be distracted by temporary appearances. It is the inner discipline that says, I will not abandon the reality I have imagined just because the present moment doesn't reflect it yet. You understand that the outer world is delayed. It is not the source, it is the echo. And the echo always comes after the sound. So you keep speaking the language of your fulfilled desire. You keep living in the feeling of it. And eventually the echo arrives. This is not about repetition for the sake of repetition. It's about saturation. It's about saturating your mind with the image and feeling of your fulfilled state until it becomes your natural mood, until it becomes more real to you than what your eyes see. That is the moment when manifestation becomes inevitable, because your internal world is no longer reacting to the external, it is leading it. But there are moments when doubt will whisper in your ear, asking you to be realistic, asking you to lower your expectations. But if you surrender to doubt, you step out of the creative state. You hand over your power to the external world and ask it to tell you what is possible. But when you persist, you stay rooted in the truth that you are the operant power, that nothing moves in your world unless it moves through you first. So even when your heart trembles and the evidence is absent, you do not waver. You persist in the assumption that everything works out for you because you know it's already true in the unseen. To persist is to carry peace into chaos. It is to smile at what once triggered panic. It is to remain unmoved while the world reorganizes itself to mirror your belief. Because persistence does not demand, it knows. It does not strive, it allows. And it does not chase. There is a stillness that comes with true persistence. You no longer obsess over how things will unfold. You no longer need constant reassurance. You have gone beyond the need for signs because you have become the sign. Your inner world is so saturated with the end result that any deviation feels temporary. You know it's all part of the unfolding. You don't rush the process. You trust it. And in that trust, your energy becomes magnetic. You draw what you need without effort because your conviction is now the dominant vibration. People often mistake waiting for persistence, but waiting is passive. Persistence is active, but not in the way of striving or chasing. It's active in your consciousness. You remain mentally faithful to the state of the wish fulfilled. That is the true work. And it's not always glamorous. It's done in silence. It's done in solitude. It's done when no one is watching. But it's the most powerful act you can perform. Your reality does not respond to fleeting desire. It responds to persistent assumption. The assumption you return to again and again becomes the seed that life nourishes. And even when storms come, you hold steady. You do not interpret difficulty as denial. You interpret it as refinement, as preparation, as the sculpting of your character to match your desire. And you persist, not because you're forcing your will on the world, but because you've already received it in your spirit. And what is received within must be expressed without. Think of the artist who sees the final painting before the first stroke is made. The painting lives within him. He persists through each stage, not because he hopes it will become what he sees, but because he already sees it as complete. Every stroke is an act of faith. Every brush is a declaration of the finished work. That is how you must live. Every action, every thought, every word let them all be born from the vision of the fulfilled state. Persistence becomes your posture. It becomes your home. And from that home, you begin to view life differently. You no longer panic at setbacks. You no longer fear delays. You see each moment as working in your favor, even if it disguises itself as resistance. Because you are not reacting to life, you're commanding it. And you command it by persisting in your chosen state. The world will test your resolve. It will ask if you really believe. And your answer is not in your words, it's in your persistence. It's in the quiet confidence you carry when nothing around you seems to agree. That is when the shift begins. That is when the unseen starts to move. Because you dared to hold the vision. You dared to stay faithful to the unseen. And life, as it must, bows to the one who does not waver. Your imagination is not a passive daydreaming machine. It is the divine tool through which reality is formed. It is not something to be used occasionally when you're trying to escape life. It is the very power that designs life. Everything you experience now was first born in someone's imagination, whether it was conscious or unconscious. Every building you see, every system you operate in, every relationship dynamic you find yourself in, it all began as an idea, as a mental image, held with enough focus and emotion that it found its way into form. When you begin to understand that your imagination is not just for fantasy, but for function, everything changes. You start to approach your inner world with reverence. You begin to treat your thoughts like seeds and your feelings like the soil they grow in. Most people imagine by default, not by design. They rehearse worry instead of success. They visualize worst-case scenarios and call it being realistic. But they do not realize that the universe does not judge whether your imagination is used for fear or for faith. It simply responds to the dominant vision you hold. If you constantly imagine things going wrong, doors closing, people turning against you, then you are scripting that outcome. You are writing a play that life will be forced to perform. But the moment you flip that script, when you imagine victory, harmony, progress, abundance, then you begin to reshape the story. What you consistently imagine begins to sink into your subconscious mind. And once the subconscious accepts it, it becomes automatic. Your reactions change, your mood changes, your energy shifts. You start to speak from a different place, walk differently, think differently. And all of it flows from the blueprint you carry within. The subconscious is not creative, it is obedient. It does not argue, it executes. And what it executes is the plan you give it, over and over, in vivid emotional imagination. You must remember that imagination is not fantasy. It is rehearsal. It is preparation. It is construction. When you imagine yourself as confident, healthy, successful, and deeply at peace, you are not escaping reality. You are building it. The outer world has no choice but to reflect what you have already completed inwardly. So many people exhaust themselves trying to manipulate the external world. They chase relationships. They beg for opportunities. They seek validation. But they do not realize that the external is only a reflection. It has no power of its own. You do not need to beg the mirror to show a different face. You need to change the expression you are wearing. When you adjust your internal image, the mirror has no choice. It reflects you instantly. This is how reality works. If you hold a self-image of being unloved, unsupported, or unsuccessful, then life must echo that back to you. It is not cruelty, it is law. And that same law will work for you, not against you. The moment you begin to consistently imagine yourself as you wish to be. To do this properly, you must learn to quiet the outer world. You must find moments to withdraw from the noise, from the chatter of doubt, from the opinions of others. In stillness, your imagination becomes sharp. You can hear your inner voice again. You can feel the truth of what you desire. And in that space, you begin to feel the scene of your fulfilled wish. Not watch it like a movie, but feel it as though it's real. What would it feel like if you were already there? What would you see? What would you hear? Who would you be? These are not just questions, they are invitations. And as you accept the invitation to live in the end, your imagination starts to take form. It becomes your home. You live from that state, not just in meditation, but in waking life. People who understand the power of imagination stop reacting to the world. They become deliberate creators. They do not concern themselves with how something will come. They focus only on assuming it already has. The how is not their job. The how belongs to the same intelligence that grows trees, orchestrates the stars, and beats your heart without you thinking about it. You are not meant to micromanage life. You are meant to imagine it into being and then live in alignment with that image. When you do, life bends to meet you where you stand. Your imagination is also your sanctuary. In times of disappointment or confusion, it offers you a safe space to recalibrate. You can return to your inner world, rebuild the scene, and step back into the feeling of fulfillment. It is not about ignoring problems. It is about remembering your power. When something outside doesn't go your way, you don't spiral, you go within. You revise the moment, you create a new outcome in imagination. And if you remain faithful to that image, the world adjusts. It has no choice. You must become emotionally involved with your imagined scene. Feel it so deeply that it becomes more real than your current conditions. That feeling is the fuel. Without feeling, imagination is lifeless. But when emotion and imagination merge, creation begins. The subconscious accepts the scene as fact, and circumstances start to move. The bridge of incidents begins to form. People enter your life, conversations change, coincidences begin to happen. But to the one who imagined it, none of this feels surprising, because they already lived it first in consciousness. Even when nothing seems to be changing, you must continue imagining. Continue believing, continue holding the vision. Reality often takes time to catch up to the frequency of your inner world, but it always does. The key is to stay faithful, to hold the image with the same emotion and certainty regardless of appearances. Because appearances are not the truth. Your inner world is the truth, and your imagination is the creative workshop where all things begin. There is no limit to what you can create when you understand this. You can rewrite your past, reshape your present, and pre-design your future. You are never stuck, you are never trapped. You are simply imagining the same things over and over. Change the image and life follows. Train yourself to dwell only on what you want to experience. Starve the images of lack, fear, and failure. Nourish the visions of love, success, and peace. And above all, remember this. Your imagination is sacred. It is not make-believe. It is the blueprint of your destiny. Treat it with the power and respect it deserves, and it will return to you a life beyond your wildest dreams. Feeling is the engine behind all creation. It is the invisible current that turns mental pictures into living experiences. You may speak affirmations all day, think positive thoughts, or recite beautiful phrases, but if they lack feeling, they are hollow. It is not the words alone that carry power, it is the emotional energy behind them. Feeling is what signals to the subconscious mind that something is real. And once the subconscious accepts it as real, it begins to move everything necessary to make that reality visible. When you act as if everything always works out for you, It cannot remain an intellectual exercise. It must be felt in your bones, in your breath, in the rhythm of your daily life. That feeling of security, that confidence, that joy of already being where you want to be, that is what transforms a desire into destiny. Most people confuse desire with belief. They want something badly, but they don't feel it as true. They think about the things they hope will happen, but inside they still feel lack, they still feel worry, they still feel doubt. And so the signal they send into the universe is one of absence, not fulfillment. The feeling of wanting is not the same as the feeling of having. The feeling of hope is not the same as the feeling of certainty. You must shift from craving something outside of you to experiencing it within you. That's the secret. You must learn to conjure the emotional state of your desire fulfilled and rest there, not just for a moment, but long enough that it becomes your new normal. This is not pretending, this is not tricking yourself or playing make-believe. This is embodying a truth before the world can confirm it. This is about stepping into the role of the version of you for whom the outcome is already settled. You don't need to prove anything, you don't need to force it. You simply live from the feeling that it is already done. And this feeling then begins to orchestrate circumstances in your favor. Doors open, paths clear. Things that once felt stuck begin to shift. But all of it happens as a reflection of your inner state. Life mirrors the vibration you carry, not occasionally, but constantly. Feeling is the secret because it is the evidence of belief. You don't have to say you believe if you feel that you already have it. You must ask yourself, how would I feel right now if everything truly worked out for me? What would my body feel like? What would I stop worrying about? How would I walk into a room? What kind of energy would I give off? That's where the transformation begins, not in some distant future, but right now. In the way you carry yourself, begin to feel the relief, the joy, the ease, and the celebration of a life that supports you. When you live in that feeling, you become a magnet for everything that matches it. So many people live in the feeling of frustration, of confusion, of fear, and then wonder why their life reflects it. But they have not yet learned to cultivate the emotional atmosphere of fulfillment. They wait for something outside to make them feel good, instead of realizing that feeling good is what brings the outside change. The cause is always internal. And when you learn to control your inner weather, the outer climate begins to cooperate. It's not that challenges stop coming, but your response to them changes. You meet them with grace, because your feeling remains steady. Your emotional state becomes anchored, not in circumstances, but in truth. Even when things appear to go wrong, even when outcomes seem delayed, you return to the feeling, you return to the knowing that all things are working out. And in that place, peace is restored. That peace becomes your power. You stop rushing, stop forcing, stop doubting. You begin to carry a quiet confidence that others can feel, even if they don't understand it. That is the power of felt truth. It doesn't require defense. It simply is. Feeling also has the power to bypass logic. You may not know how things will happen. You may not have the full picture, but if you feel it real, you don't need all the answers. You rest in the assurance that the answers will come. The mind loves logic and structure, but the heart knows what is real, even without explanation. When the feeling is strong, the mind begins to follow. It looks for evidence to support the dominant emotion. And soon, life begins to deliver it. Coincidences, unexpected opportunities, moments of clarity, all flowing from the vibration you've chosen to live in. There will be times when it feels hard to hold the feeling, when the world feels heavy and the vision feels distant. That is when the real work begins. That is when you must choose to return again and again to the inner state, not by forcing, but by remembering. Remember what it feels like to be supported. Remember what it feels like to win. Remember the feeling of being loved, healed, understood, and elevated. That memory, when felt deeply, becomes a prophecy. It is not a wish, it is a signal. And that signal changes everything. Feeling is not optional in the process of creation. It is the fuel. It is what gives color and depth to the picture in your mind. Without it, your imagination is dry. But with it, the vision becomes alive. It breathes, it moves, it becomes magnetic. So train yourself to feel what you desire as though it were already yours. Live in that emotion. Let it soak into your habits, your conversations, your posture. Let it become the dominant frequency of your day. This is how transformation happens, not in a flash, not in a sudden miracle, but in a consistent alignment with the feeling of your fulfilled desire. You begin to act, think, and speak from the identity of the one who already has it. And as you do, you realize that the outer world has no choice but to adjust, because the outer is only ever the servant of the inner. And once the inner has accepted the new reality, through feeling, the outer must bow to it. It cannot resist the energy of someone who lives as if all things are already working out. Because for that person, they already are. Whatever you imagine persistently must become your reality. For the world you see is not a world of facts, it is a world of shadows, molded and shaped by the unseen movements of your inner being. Imagination is not a fleeting daydream or idle fantasy. It is the very creative power that gives form to all that you call life. To imagine is to create. To persist in that imagination is to command the unseen forces to gather and crystallize into what you experience as your world. Every condition you now endure, every joy you now celebrate, every disappointment you have met along the way, each of these was first a thought, a belief, an image quietly entertained in the solitude of your mind, and whether you knew it or not, your imagination gave them life. The secret that changes everything is this: what you feel and imagine as real will eventually harden into fact. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are conscious of being. Consider for a moment how often you return to certain images in your mind. When you wake, when you walk, when you're alone with your thoughts, what are the scenes you replay? Are they filled with fear, doubt, and lack? Or do they radiate confidence, abundance, and fulfillment? That which you imagine consistently, whether you label it as hope or fear, becomes a silent decree to life itself. You are always imagining. The question is, are you doing it deliberately? The greatest mistake is to believe that imagination is powerless, that it is mere escapism. But it is the only true power. All that you see in this world once lived first in someone's imagination. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the voice you hear in music. Even the problems you face began as thoughts nurtured until they became part of your world. And if such power exists within you, does it not follow that your persistent inner vision is the blueprint of your tomorrow? To imagine persistently is not to force with willpower, but to rest in a state that feels real. It is to assume the end, to dwell in the experience as though it were already here. You do not wait for evidence. You create it. You do not chase the thing. You become one with the feeling of already having it. Your inner world must take the lead, and the outer will follow in obedience. This is not a theory to be debated. It is a truth to be proven by personal experience. And once you see its power, you will never again doubt your ability to shape your fate. Many fail to manifest their desires not because they lack effort, but because they waver. They imagine the goal, then the obstacle. They affirm success, then surrender to fear. But the one who persists, who returns daily, hourly if need be, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that one cannot fail. Persistence does not mean repetition without belief. It means loyalty to your vision in the face of delay, contradiction, and silence. You must make your imagination more real to you than the current facts. Speak from it, walk in it, feel it deeply, let it become your home. And even if nothing changes at once, do not retreat. The seed you plant in the imagination must gestate. And while it may be hidden, it is never inactive. Life rearranges itself silently in service of your dominant state of consciousness. What you are conscious of being will always find expression. You are not the victim of circumstance. You are the author of circumstance. When the vision becomes more compelling than the evidence of your senses, when the unseen is felt more deeply than the visible, then you have begun to live as the operant power. Imagination, fused with emotion and held persistently, becomes a command to the universe, no matter how impossible it may seem. If you do not let go of the image, it will take root and bloom. It is not enough to imagine once or twice. You must make it a dwelling place. Return to it when you are tired. Return to it when you are discouraged. Return to it when nothing seems to work. For imagination is the womb of reality, and all things must be born twice, first in the mind, then in the world. You do not need to ask how it will happen. That is not your task. Your task is to imagine, feel, and persist. You are the dreamer dreaming the world into existence. That which you consistently entertain in the silence of your soul becomes the loudest declaration of your life. Let your inner conversations be full of the things you long for. Let your thoughts echo the reality you seek, not the one you fear. What you water with your attention grows. And so, when you see no sign, persist. When the world laughs, persist. When your old thoughts try to pull you back, persist. There is no force on earth more powerful than a soul who holds steadfastly to the unseen image of their desire. Reality bends not for the faint-hearted, but for the one who dares to claim the invisible as already theirs. Imagination is not a luxury reserved for artists or dreamers. It is the core faculty by which every individual creates their world, knowingly or unknowingly. The power to imagine is the power to shape the very structure of your existence. All that you see in your world, your relationships, your finances, your health, your career, did not emerge randomly. These things are reflections of the ideas and mental images you have persistently entertained within the hidden theater of your mind. The truth, which so many overlook in favor of facts and figures, is that imagination precedes creation. It is not something secondary to action. It is the cause of action. Every action you've taken began with a thought. Every habit you formed began as a single idea impressed repeatedly upon your mind until it became natural. And every environment you dwell in was once imagined by you or someone else. This world is not fixed. It is fluid and moldable. And imagination is the hand that molds it. When you sit quietly and picture yourself in a life you desire, happy, successful, at peace, you are not escaping reality. You are engaging with the root of reality. You are entering into the first stage of creation. You are planting a seed. And like any seed, it must be watered and nurtured before it can bloom. But what most people do is abandon the garden before the harvest. They imagine once or twice, then look around and say, nothing has changed. But reality is not changed by mere glimpses of desire. It is changed by a consistent inner state. You must dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must return to the scene of your desire as though it were your home, not as a visitor, but as a resident. Imagination is not weak, it is not pretend, it is not less real than what your senses tell you. In fact, it is more real, for what you sense with your physical eyes is only the shadow of a deeper reality formed within. Think back to your own life. Think of something that once did not exist in your world, but now does. a relationship, a job, a moment of success, even a failure. If you are honest, you will remember the thoughts and emotions that led up to it. You will recall the nights you spent thinking of it, the daydreams you had, the fears you entertained. Those thoughts were not idle. They were creative. And they moved silently below the surface until the world had no choice but to obey. This is why you must guard your imagination with seriousness. Most people treat imagination like a toy. They use it to worry, to doubt, to relive pain. They imagine worst-case scenarios and then call them realism. But there's nothing real about giving power to fear. There's nothing practical about expecting the worst. All that happens is the mind, acting on its perfect obedience, brings those scenes to life. And then the person says, see, I knew it would happen, but they do not realize they are not predicting, they are creating. The mind is loyal. It does not judge what you feed it, it simply acts. You have been given a gift so powerful that it mirrors the divine itself. To imagine is to say, let there be. And what follows is the unfolding of that command. The unseen becomes seen. The intangible becomes tangible. And the life you once only dreamed of begins to take form around you. But this process does not happen by accident. It is initiated by intention and sustained by persistence. That is the key so many miss. A moment of imagination is not enough. A passing wish has no root. But when you persist in the same inner experience, when you walk in it, speak from it, live as though it were already true, then you are no longer merely imagining, you are becoming. And when you become something on the inside, the world has no option but to reflect that change. This is not mysticism. This is law. Just as a mirror cannot reflect what is not in front of it, your life cannot reflect what you have not held within. And just as the sun does not choose where to shine, it simply shines, so too does imagination not choose what to manifest, it simply expresses what is most dominantly felt and believed within the mind that uses it. And that is why your attention is sacred. Where your attention goes, imagination flows. And what you imagine persistently becomes the blueprint of your future. Do not wait for external circumstances to change before you allow yourself to imagine something better. That is like waiting for warmth before starting a fire. You must light the fire first. You must dare to imagine your life as you wish it to be, even while it appears otherwise. Because the moment you begin to imagine consistently, with feeling, you are already stepping into a new dimension of self. The world may lag behind for a moment, but it will catch up. It must. That is its nature. The outer follows the inner, not the other way around. You are not at the mercy of fate or chance. You are not a pawn in the hands of others. You are the creator of your experience, not through struggle or force, but through the quiet power of imagination. That which you persistently imagine, you become. And that which you become internally, you must meet externally. This is the eternal truth behind all transformation. Persistence is not about force, nor is it about straining your will to make something happen. It is about a steady, unwavering inner commitment to live in the state of the wish fulfilled. It is the calm and faithful decision to return again and again to the vision you've chosen, regardless of how loudly the outer world screams in contradiction. Most people begin this journey with enthusiasm. They imagine the life they desire, feel the emotions of it, taste its sweetness in their mind. But when days pass and nothing outside changes, doubt creeps in. They begin to wonder if this is just fantasy, if perhaps reality is too fixed, too stubborn to bend. And so they withdraw from the inner world and fall back into reacting to what they see. What they do not understand is that the world outside always lags behind the shift within. Persistence is the bridge that closes that gap. It is the invisible hand that guides unseen energies into alignment. You are not meant to imagine once and then give up. You are not meant to visualize for a few moments and then return to fear or despair. This work requires a faithfulness of heart. It asks you to choose, over and over again, to live internally from the end result, even when the outer world tells a different story. You must become so loyal to your vision that the facts no longer sway your spirit. The appearances no longer have power to define you. You become defined, instead, by what you see and feel within. Imagine planting a seed. You place it in the soil, cover it gently, and water it. Do you return the next morning and dig it up to see if it has sprouted? No. You trust the process. You water it again. You allow the unseen work of growth to unfold beneath the surface. And you do this daily, even though there is no visible proof in the beginning. This is the essence of persistence in imagination. You return to your inner image, the scene that reflects your fulfilled desire, and you water it with belief, with emotion, with silence. You do not demand its sprout overnight. You simply remain faithful. And that faith, that return again and again to the inner picture, is what guarantees the outer result. Persistence is not hard when you understand that it is not effort but trust. It is the relaxation into knowing that your imagination is a creative force, not a passive experience. When you hold a vision with deep feeling and do so consistently, you are writing the script for your life, and life will perform it line by line, moment by moment. But if you keep rewriting the script, if you keep changing the scene or doubting the story midway through, then nothing can settle into form. It's not that imagination doesn't work, it's that it hasn't been given a chance to finish its work. There is a hidden beauty in persistence. It reveals to you what you truly believe. If you find it difficult to hold on to the vision, if you are constantly tempted to return to fear or worry, then that is not failure, it is illumination. You are being shown the parts of your consciousness that are still tied to the old identity. And this is where the real transformation happens. Persistence is not only about achieving the outer desire, it is about refining the inner self until it is fully aligned with that desire. You become the version of yourself that naturally experiences what you imagine. And here lies the mystery. The moment you persist in an inner assumption long enough, it begins to feel normal. What once felt like a stretch becomes your default state. You no longer need to force the feeling because the feeling has taken root. It has become familiar. This is when manifestation becomes inevitable. You are no longer pretending or wishing, you are being. And being is the most powerful creative act in existence. This is not the words you speak or the rituals you perform, but the state you inhabit. And the only way to inhabit a new state fully is to persist in it until the mind accepts it as truth. There will be moments when the old world tries to pull you back, when memories arise, when the past demands your attention. But you must treat those moments like passing clouds. Do not fight them, do not fear them. Simply return to your chosen vision. Every return strengthens it. Every return is a declaration that this is who you are now. And soon, that declaration will no longer be silent. It will echo into the world as changed circumstances open doors and unexpected blessings. People who call it luck or coincidence, but you will know it was born from within. Persistence does not require long hours. It requires sincerity. A few moments of true immersion in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is more powerful than hours of distracted imagining. The key is consistency. Imagine before you sleep. Imagine when you wake. Imagine when your mind wanders. Let your imagination become your dwelling place. Let your inner conversations reflect the life you want to live. And when doubts come, and they will, Meet them not with fear, but with confidence. Confidence that what you feel within is more real than what you see without. There is no power greater than the human imagination fueled by persistence. It moves mountains, heals wounds, creates paths where none seem to exist. But you must not be swayed by time. Do not measure progress by what appears outside. Measure it by your growing conviction inside. Do you believe more today than you did yesterday? Do you feel closer to your vision when you close your eyes? That is the true compass. That is the evidence of transformation. You have within you the power to shape the very structure of your life. But that power only responds to consistency. You must decide who you are and live from that decision daily. The world may resist at first. It may echo the old beliefs for a while. But if you hold fast, if you return and return again to the reality you've chosen within, the world will eventually surrender. It has no choice. It always bends to the will of the persistent dreamer. You do not become what you wish for, you become what you assume. This is a truth that escapes the minds of many who believe that desiring something is enough to bring it into being. But desire alone, without a corresponding assumption of its reality, is like a ship without a rudder, drifting, aimless, easily swayed by the tides of external conditions. Your life is shaped not by what you hope for, but by what you inwardly consent to be true. The images you hold as real, the identities you accept, the self-definitions you repeat in your silence, these are the architects of your experience. The outer world is not a judge. It is a servant. It delivers to you precisely what you persistently believe yourself to be. Assumption is the silent decree we make in the depths of our being. It is the posture of the soul. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and often invisible to others. Yet its effects are monumental. When you assume something to be true, even in the absence of proof, you begin to think from it. You begin to feel, speak, and act in alignment with it. And as you continue in this state, the world begins to rearrange itself in response. Not because the world is listening to your words, but because it must reflect the image held in your consciousness. You may say you want success, love, freedom, or peace, but if deep within you feel unworthy, unseen, or powerless, then it is not your spoken desire that creates. It is your assumed identity. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. The truth of who you believe yourself to be is written into every experience you encounter. The relationships you draw, the opportunities that arise, the challenges you face, they are all messages echoing from the beliefs you entertain. Change the belief, and the message changes. To live by assumption is to walk by faith, not by sight. It is to trust the unseen more than the seen. It is to claim what is not yet visible as though it were already fact. And this is not delusion, it is creation. All that you now see was once unseen. Every invention, every masterpiece, every achievement in the world began as a silent assumption in someone's imagination. They believed it real before it became real. They felt it true before anyone else could see it. And because they did, reality responded. The greatest freedom you will ever know comes from understanding that you can choose your assumptions. You are not bound by what others say you are. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are not confined to the limits others have accepted. At any moment, you can step into a new idea of yourself. You can say, "This is who I am now," and begin to live from that state. And if you persist, the world will eventually agree. This is the hidden key to all transformation. Not the struggle to force change, but the quiet decision to assume a new identity, to assume health instead of illness, to assume abundance instead of lack, to assume love instead of rejection. And the assumption is made not with the lips, but with the heart. It is felt, not merely spoken. It must become more than a thought. It must become a felt reality, an inner knowing. Many try to change their lives by changing external things. They move cities, switch careers, seek new relationships, hoping that these changes will fix the dissatisfaction within. But the inner self remains unchanged. The assumption remains the same. And so the pattern repeats again and again. Different faces, different places, same experience. Because the external only reflects the internal. You do not escape your assumptions by running from them. You transcend them by replacing them. To assume is to claim authority over your life. It is to say, I am not waiting for permission. I already am. It is to reject the need for proof and to stand firm in a new identity, knowing that proof must follow. You are not asking the world to believe in you. You are commanding it to reflect what you already believe about yourself. And this power is not reserved for the few. It is the inheritance of every soul willing to awaken to it. There is a moment in the life of every conscious creator when they must choose between comfort and transformation. It is comfortable to remain in the known, to keep affirming the identity that has been shaped by the past. But transformation requires boldness. It demands that you let go of the old and step into the unknown, assuming a new role before it feels natural. And that is where most fall. They wait to feel ready. They wait for external signs. But readiness is an illusion. The sign you seek is the assumption you dare to make. Assumption creates the mold into which life must pour itself. It forms the structure of experience before the experience is seen. And once the structure is set, once the state is occupied, then manifestation becomes a matter of time. But you must stay in the state. You must resist the temptation to slip back into the old identity when nothing seems to change. You must be loyal to the vision, not to the facts. What you assume to be true of yourself becomes your reality, not because of magic or luck, but because life is obedient to your inner state. And if you wish to change your life, change what you assume, not in moments of desperation or fleeting hope, but in the stillness of your heart. Every day, every hour, until the new state becomes your dwelling place, until it becomes natural. And then, when it is no longer a performance, but a being, you will look around and see that the world has caught up with what you have long known to be true. The outer world is nothing more than a mirror, silently reflecting your dominant inner state. What you call reality is not something happening to you. It is something happening through you. Everything you see, hear, and experience is echoing the assumptions you hold within yourself. This is not philosophy. It is not mere inspiration. It is a law, as certain as gravity and as impartial as light. You do not change the mirror by wiping the reflection. You change it by changing the source that produces the image. In the same way, you do not change your circumstances by struggling against them. You change them by shifting the consciousness from which they arise. Every person, every event, every success and failure you encounter in life is drawn to you by your inner self-concept. Life, in its quiet and faithful way, listens to the tone of your inner voice and responds accordingly. If you believe yourself to be unseen, life will give you the experience of being overlooked. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will find relationships and opportunities that reinforce that feeling. If you imagine that abundance is far from you, you will continue to experience lack. Not because life is cruel, but because it is obedient. It delivers only what you persistently believe to be true. This is the reason many live in cycles. They try to change jobs, switch relationships, move to new places, or set new goals, hoping that change will finally bring fulfillment. But nothing truly changes. The same patterns follow them from city to city, from person to person. Why? because the outer world is not the cause, it is the effect. And until the cause within is altered, the effect remains the same. You cannot outrun your own consciousness. You take it with you wherever you go. There is immense power in this truth, once you truly grasp it, because it means you are not at the mercy of chance or the whims of others. You are not bound to relive your past or repeat your patterns. You have the power to choose a new state of being, a new idea of yourself, and when you do, the world must conform. But the shift must be real. It must be internal. It must be more than words. It must be a change in feeling, in belief, in identity. It is not enough to speak affirmations with your lips while your heart still beats with fear. It is not enough to visualize a new life while secretly believing it's out of reach. The outer world responds not to what you say, but to what you are. And what you are is determined by what you dwell upon, what you accept as possible, what you feel to be true in the silence of your soul. Your dominant state becomes your reality. When you begin to observe your life with this awareness, you will notice how precisely your inner world maps onto your outer experience. If you carry a sense of lack, you will notice how opportunities seem just out of reach. If you radiate gratitude and abundance within, you will find yourself walking into blessings without effort. It is not coincidence, it is correspondence. The world is not separate from you, it is the outpicturing of your inner state. This is why it is said that feeling is the secret, because feeling is the language by which your consciousness communicates with life. A single moment of genuine feeling carries more creative power than hours of mechanical repetition. When you imagine yourself as healthy, joyful, fulfilled, and feel it deeply, you are impressing that image onto the subconscious mind. And the subconscious does not question, it accepts. It begins to guide your actions, your thoughts, your reactions, until the outer world begins to reflect that inner certainty. But this transformation does not happen instantly. The old world may linger. The remnants of past beliefs may echo in your environment for a time. And here is where many falter. They judge their progress by what they see rather than by what they know. They return to fear, to doubt, to the familiar feeling of not having. And in doing so, they undo the work of their inner creation. Persistence is required, not because the universe is slow to respond, but because the mind must be fully saturated with the new assumption before it can take form. Your world will always confirm who you believe yourself to be. It cannot help it, it has no choice. It is a mirror, not a judge. And if you do not like what you see, the answer is not to fight the mirror, but to shift the image you project. Speak differently within. Imagine boldly. Feel deeply. And most importantly, remain loyal to the new vision, even when the old world tries to pull you back. It is not resistance you must apply, it is residence. You must take up residence in the new state until it becomes your natural dwelling. Imagine waking each morning and instead of reviewing your past failures or fears, you choose to enter a new scene in your mind. You walk through a home that is yours. You speak from the position of one who is loved, who is secure, who is thriving. You do this not once, but daily. And as you persist, your inner world shifts. You find yourself reacting differently, you speak differently, you walk with quiet confidence, and soon life begins to mirror that change. You meet new people, new doors open, opportunities arrive in the most unexpected ways. It is not magic, it is law. The law that states what is within must appear without. And so the work is always inward. When the outer world appears hostile or disappointing, turn inward and ask, what am I assuming? What story am I telling about myself? What image am I holding? And then change it. Not by force, but by faith, by vision, by feeling. Hold to the new image. even if nothing supports it yet, because the moment you do, the mirror must change. It is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. And that when is determined by how faithfully you live in the new state, how deeply you feel it, how completely you allow it to define you. Your life is not reacting to others, it is reacting to you. And the more you realize this, the more freedom you gain. You no longer blame, you no longer wait. You create quietly, boldly, from within. Because the world around you is not fixed, it is always listening, always watching for your next instruction. And that instruction is delivered through the assumptions you live by, the feelings you embody, and the visions you persistently entertain. The outer is simply the echo. The cause is always within. The law of creation is impersonal. It does not reward the good or punish the bad. It does not ask whether you are worthy or unworthy. It does not wait for you to become perfect. It simply responds to the state you occupy and the belief you persistently hold. This is what makes it both frightening and freeing. Frightening because it means you are always creating even in your unconsciousness. Freeing because it means you can begin creating deliberately at any moment, regardless of your past. The law is not emotional, it is precise. It functions with perfect consistency, just as gravity does. You do not have to be a saint to make use of it. You do not need approval. You simply need faith and the willingness to persist in the assumption of your desired state. This law does not ask if you are ready. It responds only to what you claim as real. You can say 1,000 affirmations, but if you do not believe them, if you do not feel them to be true, they hold no power. The law does not respond to words alone. It responds to feeling, to belief, to inner certainty. It is not about the number of times you repeat something, but the depth with which you feel it. One moment of deep, genuine belief can do more than weeks of empty repetition. The key is to feel from the state you desire, to live in that state inwardly, even before the world reflects it outwardly. People often ask, why hasn't it happened yet? But this question reveals a misunderstanding. The law is not delayed. It is immediate in its response to your dominant state. What takes time is not the law's function, but the stabilization of your own belief. If your faith wavers, if you imagine your desire one moment and then question it the next, you are sending mixed signals to the mirror of life. It reflects what you believe most persistently, not what you believe momentarily. That is why persistence is everything. The one who continues in faith, regardless of appearances, is the one who will see their vision made real. The law works whether you use it consciously or not. If you fill your mind with images of lack, fear, and failure, you will see those things reflected in your life, not because you are cursed or doomed, but because that is what you have inwardly accepted as true. Likewise, if you fill your mind with images of abundance, peace, and success, and you persist in those images until they feel natural, then the law must respond accordingly. It has no choice. It does not consider fairness. It mirrors belief. You do not need to struggle or beg. The law does not respond to desperation. It responds to inner knowing. When you imagine something and feel it real, you are giving the law its command. When you persist in that feeling, despite what you see, you are confirming that command. And when your inner state becomes unshakable, the outer must yield. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. The world bends to those who dare to remain loyal to the unseen. So many people believe they must earn their desires. They think they must prove themselves worthy through suffering or endless effort. But the law is not keeping score. It is not measuring your goodness. It is measuring your belief. Are you dwelling in the consciousness of what you want? Are you assuming it, not as a distant hope, but as a present fact? That is what activates the law. not struggle, not merit. Belief. And this is what makes the law available to everyone. You do not need anything outside yourself. No special education, no wealth, no connections. The only qualification is your willingness to believe, your willingness to feel the unseen as real. That is the true starting point of all transformation. Everything else is secondary. If you can hold the end in mind and feel it is true, without needing to know how or when it will come, you are already walking in alignment with the law. The difficulty for most people is not that they lack the ability to imagine, it is that they lack the discipline to remain faithful to the vision. They let the outer world dictate their belief. They pray for change while continuing to feel the same fear. They wish for love while assuming rejection. But the law does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you feel you already are. You must embody the change you seek. You must become it internally before it ever appears externally. You may think this is unfair, but it is actually the greatest justice, because it means no one can take your power away. No one can block your path unless you allow them to. No one can limit your destiny unless you agree to those limits. The law is impersonal, and because of that, it is perfectly just. It offers itself equally to all. The question is, will you use it deliberately? Will you claim your power to create through faith and persistence? When you begin to trust the law, truly trust it, something shifts within you. You stop reacting to appearances. You stop begging for change. You stop wondering if it will happen. Instead, you live from the end. You rest in the feeling of your fulfilled desire. You walk in the world with quiet assurance, knowing that the law is already working on your behalf. You don't need to chase anything. You become the embodiment of it, and life brings it to you. Faith is the engine, not blind faith, but intelligent, conscious faith, the kind of faith that knows the truth of imagination, the kind of faith that refuses to let go, not out of stubbornness, but out of certainty. When you hold to your vision with this kind of inner conviction, the law begins to move, circumstances shift, people appear, resources come, not through strain, but through alignment. The law does not require you to push, it requires you to assume. This is the simplicity that most overlook. They complicate the process with rituals, doubts, and unnecessary actions. But at the heart of it all is one question. What do you believe to be true about yourself and your life? That belief is the seed, that belief is the command. And if you persist in it, the law will obey. It cannot do otherwise. Act as if you are the prize. Not someday. Not when you become richer, more successful, more validated by others. Not when you receive their approval, their applause, or their attention. Now, in this moment, in this breath, you must begin to move through life with the silent knowing that you are the treasure. Because the truth is, you always have been. You were not placed here to chase after what already belongs to you by divine right. You were not made to beg for love, for recognition, for respect. These things are yours to the degree that you assume they are. The world reflects what you accept as true. And if you accept lack, you get lack. If you accept unworthiness, you are shown unworthiness. But when you accept your value as undeniable, you will not be able to escape the evidence of that worth. You'll see it in the eyes of others. You'll hear it in the way they speak your name. You will feel it in the quality of your experiences. And yet none of that creates your value. It only confirms the truth you already dared to believe. Stop entertaining thoughts of competition. There is no competition when you are the standard. You are not here to outperform, outshine, or outrun anyone else. You are not an echo of someone else's glory. You are the original. The first thought of something rare and beautiful. You do not exist to be chosen. You are the chooser. You do not need to awaken to it. And once you do, Life itself rearranges to honor that awareness. You don't need to demand loyalty, attention, or affection from others. When you know you are the prize, you don't chase, you attract. You don't force, you magnetize. The energy you carry is the invitation. The belief you hold is the signal. And the truth you embody becomes the reality you experience. So walk into every room as if your presence is a gift. Speak as if your words carry weight. Think as if your thoughts shape the fabric of reality, because they do. You were not born to shrink to fit the mold others have made for you. You were born to expand, to rise, to become the full embodiment of the power you've always carried within. There is nothing to fix. There is nothing missing. You are not a work in progress. You are a masterpiece waking up. The doubts, the fears, the wounds, they do not define you. They are simply shadows that vanish the moment you stand in the light of your own awareness. Act as if you are already seen, already loved, already chosen, because that is what will make it so. Life does not give you what you wish for. It gives you what you believe you already are. The more you affirm your inner worth, the more the outer world will conform to that inner script. Do not look to others for your reflection. Look within. Close your eyes and remember who you are. Feel the depth of your being. Recognize the power in your thoughts. Everything begins with you. Everything flows from you. You are not a beggar at the gates of life. You are the one life waits to obey. So step into that version of yourself now, not tomorrow, not when it feels comfortable now. In the stillness of this moment, assume the role of the one who no longer doubts their value. Carry yourself like the prize and watch as the world begins to treat you like one. The mirror of life cannot help but reflect the certainty of your belief. And when you stop seeking validation, you become the embodiment of truth itself. You attract what you assume to be true about yourself. This is the foundation upon which all of your reality rests. It's not about what you hope, wish, or beg the universe to deliver. It's about what you believe with unwavering certainty. When you wake up in the morning and walk through the world, every moment is an expression of your inner assumption. The way people treat you, the opportunities that come your way, even the energy you feel in a room. None of it is random. It is all unfolding according to what you have accepted as truth on the inside. You might think that others are in control, that their choices and actions determine your worth, but that is the illusion. The reality is far deeper and far more empowering. The outer world only ever reflects the state of your inner world. When you assume you are worthy, that you are the prize, then your entire being shifts. Your body language changes, your tone of voice changes, your decisions begin to align with someone who no longer doubts their value. And without even speaking a word, others can feel it. They respond to that inner knowing because it radiates from you like light. It doesn't ask for attention, it commands it, not from arrogance, but from truth. The truth that says, I know who I am, and I no longer live in contradiction with that knowing. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to announce it. The assumption carries its own energy, and the universe, always obedient to belief, will bend to confirm it. Most people live their lives begging for the world to see their worth first, so that they can finally believe it too. But that is backwards. That's like staring into a mirror, waiting for it to smile first, so you can smile in return. The mirror reflects, it does not initiate. And life, in its perfect order, works the same way. You must smile first. You must feel the certainty of your value first. You must assume that you are enough now, not later. You must walk into situations with a quiet confidence that you bring something valuable to the table, not because you said so, but because it is so. Think about the times in your life when you felt invisible, unworthy, or overlooked. Were those not the moments when deep down you doubted yourself? You may have blamed others for not seeing your value, but what if they were only responding to the energy you were projecting? What if in those moments the assumption you carried was, I'm not enough, I'm not what they're looking for, I'm replaceable, and life, being the perfect mirror, simply reflected that belief right back to you, not to punish you, but to reveal to you what you were holding inside. Because once you change the internal picture, the entire outer frame shifts. There is a power that awakens within you when you begin to live from the place of assumed worth. You no longer seek permission. You no longer ask if you're allowed to take up space. You move, speak, and create with the conviction that your existence is already justified. You stop asking life to choose you and start realizing that you were already chosen the moment you were created. There is no need to earn what has already been gifted. Your worth is not a prize to be won. It is a truth to be remembered. And the remembering begins the moment you shift your assumption. You cannot trick the universe. You may say the right affirmations, you may write your goals down daily, but if the assumption within remains rooted in lack, fear, or unworthiness, then that is the vibration you are sending out. And that is the vibration the world will mirror. The law is unbending. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are, what you believe yourself to be. The energy of the prize is not desperate. It is not seeking approval. It is still, calm, certain. It waits because it knows that all things must come to it. And when you take on that state of being, not as a mask but as a reality, the world has no choice but to respond. The most incredible thing about this truth is how immediate it is. You don't have to climb a mountain to reach it. You don't have to earn more, achieve more, or wait for someone else to change their mind about you. It is available to you now, in this moment. All it takes is a decision, a quiet, inner turning toward the belief that you are already what you wish to be. That the prize you seek outside, you shift from needing to convincing to simply allowing. You no longer perform, you express. You no longer reach, you receive. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is rooted in insecurity, in the need to be better than others. But when you truly know you are the prize, you don't compare yourself to anyone else. You bless others in their path, knowing that yours is uniquely divine. You stop measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. You stop questioning whether you're behind. You begin to live in the flow of your own assumption, trusting that everything must align because you are already aligned. The world will test your belief. It will present you with circumstances that seem to contradict your worth. But that is only the shadow before the shift. These moments are not evidence that you are failing. They are invitations to believe more deeply, to hold your ground, to stand firm in your assumption and refuse to return to the old pattern of doubt. The longer you hold the truth, the more the illusion will dissolve, and in its place reality will unfold, a reality that matches the energy you have chosen to live from. Every relationship, every job opportunity, every outcome begins in this invisible place. The assumption you carry into each experience is like a seed, and the reality that blossoms is simply the fruit of that seed. You cannot plant doubt and expect certainty. You cannot plant lack and expect abundance. But plant the seed of truth, water it with belief, and protect it from the weeds of fear, and it will grow into a life that reflects your inner knowing. So let the assumption live in you now. Let it take root in your thoughts, your feelings, your expectations. Speak from it, walk from it, rest in it, not because others have told you to, but because your spirit has always known it to be true. You are the prize. And when you finally stop waiting for the world to affirm that and choose to affirm it yourself, the world will shift to reflect what you always were. Your inner worth determines your outer reality. That which you hold to be true about yourself becomes the very material from which your experiences are formed. You may not see the process with your physical eyes, but it is always unfolding behind the curtain of your visible world. The beliefs you nurture in silence, the quiet confessions you make when no one is watching. These are the blueprints, and the world in its divine intelligence builds from those blueprints without fail. You are not separate from your life. You are the silent architect, shaping it moment by moment through the self-image you maintain. Most people wait for the outer world to validate their value before they decide to believe it. They hope for praise, for attention, for evidence that they matter, and when those things don't come, they shrink inward, assuming that their worth is low because the world has not placed a crown upon their head. But the truth is reversed. The world is only ever responding. It does not define you. It mirrors you. And if you walk through life unsure, apologetic, or unconvinced of your own significance, the world will accommodate that uncertainty. It will give you back your self-doubt wrapped in the form of rejection, silence, and lack. But the moment you change how you see yourself, not based on outside facts, but based on inner decision, you begin to shift the entire reality in which you live. It's not about faking confidence or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about returning to the truth of who you've always been. Beneath the layers of fear, of comparison, of conditioning, there is a self that knows it is more than enough. There is a self that doesn't chase validation because it lives from the place of knowing I am valuable because I am, not because of what I do, not because of what I have, but simply because of who I am. This knowing becomes your vibration. It's the silent tone you carry into every room. You don't have to say a word. People feel it. They sense it in your posture, your presence, your gaze. When you carry the energy of someone who sees themselves as deeply valuable, others unconsciously begin to treat you in accordance with that vibration. You teach the world how to treat you by the way you treat yourself in thought. If you approach life from a place of lack, believing you are incomplete, not good enough, or just one of many, then life reflects that back through experiences that reinforce those ideas. But when you live from the unshakable belief that you are the prize, the mirror begins to shift. Life brings people who respect you, situations that honor you, and outcomes that elevate you, not because you demanded them, but because you believed they were appropriate for someone like you. We often forget how powerful our inner talk is. The thoughts we repeat become the atmosphere in which our life grows. If you tell yourself you are overlooked, you will start noticing all the ways you're overlooked. If you declare that no one sees you, you'll begin to feel invisible in rooms full of people. But when you declare, without evidence, that you are chosen, loved, celebrated, and cherished, the world begins to rearrange itself to confirm that declaration. Life is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is waiting for you to believe you already matter, just as you are. And in that belief, your outer world begins to soften, open, and yield to your inner command. You were never meant to chase experiences to prove your worth. That is the great misunderstanding. The pursuit becomes endless because no outer thing can ever replace the belief that's missing within. You may achieve the goal, win the affection, or gain the attention, but if your inner worth remains shaky, the joy will fade quickly. You will doubt whether you deserved it. You will fear that it will be taken away. You will sabotage the very thing you tried so hard to attain. That's why the work must begin within. When you raise your inner standard of how you see yourself, everything else rises with it. This is not about pride. It is about truth. It is about living in alignment with the divine essence that breathes within you. You were not created by accident. You are not given this life to feel small, invisible, or unworthy. The breath that flows through you was chosen. The soul you carry is eternal. When you remember this, your energy changes, and when your energy changes, your outcomes follow. You no longer try to squeeze yourself into places where you are not seen. You no longer beg people to notice you. You no longer shrink so others can feel comfortable. Instead, you stand in your full worth and let life meet you there. People will treat you the way they see you treat yourself. If you carry yourself like someone who must earn love, they will make you prove your place in their life. But if you carry yourself like someone who already is love, someone who already brings value, then they will treat your presence as a gift. You set the tone, you write the script, and the outer world performs according to the story you've decided to tell. You can change that story today. You don't need years of healing. You don't need everyone else to change. You just need a moment of clarity, a decision to see yourself differently. From that decision comes a new vibration, and from that vibration comes a new life. When you shift your focus from trying to earn your worth to living from your worth, you stop striving and start creating. You stop reacting and start allowing. You stop doubting and start declaring. You don't need 1,000 confirmations. You need one decision. You don't need to be chosen by anyone else. You need to choose yourself. Not in arrogance, not in defiance, but in quiet reverence to the truth that has always been waiting to be recognized. When you treat yourself as valuable, not just when life is going well, but even in your lowest moments, you anchor a new reality, one where your outer world is no longer built on the shaky ground of approval, but on the solid foundation of self-recognition. You are the one who gets to decide how valuable you are. And when you do, when you no longer seek that decision from the outside, life stops testing you and starts honoring you. The people who once ignored you begin to notice. The doors that were once closed begin to open. The patterns that once held you back begin to dissolve. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you saw what had always been there, a soul of immense worth. And in that seeing, the outer world had no choice but to align. You do not chase, you magnetize. This is the shift in understanding that transforms your life from effort to embodiment. The moment you truly accept that you are the prize, the dynamic between you and the world reverses. You are no longer someone standing outside the gates, hoping to be let in. You become the one who sets the standard, who holds the key, who determines what enters and what does not. There is no striving in this state. There is no desperation. There is only the calm, steady presence of someone who knows they are the center of their reality and acts accordingly. Chasing is the language of lack. It is the belief that what you desire is separate from you, far away, and must be pursued. It is a state of being that says, I don't have it yet, so I must do more, try harder, become someone else to get it. But magnetizing is entirely different. It is the energy of wholeness. It says, I already am, I already have, I already deserve. And in that deep knowing, the world comes to you, not as a reward, but as a reflection. You don't have to prove your worth when you embody it. You don't have to plead for attention when your presence already speaks louder than words. This does not mean that you sit idle, waiting for miracles to fall from the sky. It means you begin from the state of having, not from the state of lack. Your actions no longer come from fear, they come from faith. They are not attempts to fix what is broken, but expressions of what is already whole. You begin to live as if you already possess what you seek. You speak with the calm assurance of someone who knows their time is not coming, it is now. That assumption is magnetic. It moves silently but powerfully through every interaction, every decision, every moment. When you chase, you shrink yourself. You signal to the universe that what you desire is above you, beyond you, outside of your reach. You place the object of your desire on a pedestal, and by doing so, you diminish yourself. But when you magnetize, you lift yourself to the same level as what you desire. You say, this belongs in my world. It is natural for me to receive it. I am equal to it. This inner elevation does not come from arrogance, it comes from alignment. You are not claiming something that is not yours. You are recognizing what has always been available to you. If only you'd stop chasing and start becoming. The magnet never runs after the metal. It holds its frequency and the metal comes. You too must hold your frequency, not with force, but with consistency. Do not lower it to meet the expectations of others. Do not dilute your essence to become more acceptable. Your job is to remain centered in your truth, to remain faithful to your vision, to live in the atmosphere of already having. That is your power. That is what makes you magnetic. Not your words, not your appearance, not your achievements, but the vibration you carry and protect from within. This energy speaks before you do. People feel it before you make an impression. They may not be able to name it, but they respond to it. They are either drawn to it or unsettled by it, not because of what you do, but because of what you emanate. When you magnetize, you don't need to persuade. You don't need to explain. You simply are. And your being does the work. The world reshapes itself around the certainty you walk with. Not immediately, not always in ways you expect, but always faithfully. Because energy never lies. And belief never returns void. Chasing will exhaust you. It will lead you into cycles of disappointment, into situations where you are undervalued, overlooked, or misused. Because the very act of chasing says, I am not it yet. And the universe, always mirroring, responds, yes, you are not it yet, but magnetizing says, I already am. And life responds, then here it comes. You must choose which conversation you want to have with reality, one that constantly reminds you of what you lack, or one that affirms what you are. The magnetized self is not passive, it is deliberate. It chooses where to focus, what to feel, what to entertain. It is aware that every thought, every assumption, every emotional state is a command. It does not allow the outer world to dictate its inner weather. It creates the atmosphere first within, knowing that the world cannot help but match it. This is not fantasy. This is the nature of consciousness. This is how creation works, not from need, but from knowing. Not from chasing, but from embodying. Imagine how your life would look if you stopped trying to impress and began to express. If you stopped proving and began being. If you stopped seeking love, validation, success, recognition, and instead became the one who naturally receives these things, not by force, but by alignment. That is what magnetism is. It is the natural pull that occurs when you become the embodiment of your desire. The more you embody it, the less you need to reach for it. It reaches for you. Your energy is always attracting something. The question is, what frequency are you operating on? Are you in the frequency of lack, doubt, and waiting? Or are you in the frequency of having, knowing, and receiving? You don't need to wait for the world to approve of your worth before you live from it. You don't need anyone to validate your power before you activate it. The magnet does not wait for permission, it simply holds its charge. And so must you. Hold the vision. Hold the belief, hold the energy of what you already are. Let the world catch up. When you live as a magnet, you become untouchable in a very subtle way. Not unreachable or unfeeling, but unwavering. Your peace is not easily shaken. Your direction is not so easily redirected. You are no longer swayed by trends, opinions, or temporary outcomes. You have become the center of your own universe, and everything else must orbit around that center. You are no longer reacting to life, you are initiating it. You do not chase, you magnetize. You do not ask for your value to be seen. You live in a way that makes it undeniable. You do not wait for someone else to declare you the prize. You assume that role, and in doing so, the world has no choice but to respond. You carry yourself like the one who has already arrived. You move like the one who is already chosen. You speak like the one whose time is already now. And in that energy, everything that belongs to you begins to recognize you, it begins to find you, it begins to come home to you. Life conforms to the self-perceived you sustain. That is not just a comforting idea. It is an immutable law. The world outside you bends itself around the world inside you. You are not at the mercy of chance, luck, or circumstance. You are at the mercy of what you persistently believe about yourself. The story you repeat in your mind, the identity you inhabit without question, becomes the script that reality follows with exactness. You are always broadcasting your inner concept of self, and life, like a mirror without bias, returns the message exactly as received. Many people try to change their circumstances while keeping the same self-permission. They want a new relationship while holding on to the belief that they are unworthy of love. They seek success while seeing themselves as someone who always fails. They crave recognition while quietly feeling invisible. And they wonder why nothing changes. But how can the picture change if the projector stays the same? You cannot plant the seed of doubt and expect the fruit of confidence. You cannot wear the identity of lack and expect abundance to knock on your door. The external world has no independent power. It is always echoing what you accept as true within. The self-perceived is subtle. It's not always made of words you say aloud. It's made of the silent assumptions you carry, the unconscious rules you've learned to live by, the invisible ceiling you believe you cannot break through. It whispers to you through your choices, what you reach for, what you tolerate, what you believe is too good to be true. It shows up in the way you allow others to treat you, in the opportunities you believe are available, and in how you respond to both success and failure. If your self-speech is rooted in unworthiness, you will subconsciously sabotage the very things you pray for. Not because you don't want them, but because some part of you still believes you don't deserve them. There is no external force keeping you from what you desire more than your internal agreement with limitation. You might say you want change, but if you still see yourself as the version who always gets overlooked, abandoned, or rejected, life has no choice but to repeat that experience. The moment you shift your self-image even slightly, reality starts to follow. You begin to notice new possibilities. You start to say no to what once felt normal. You catch yourself thinking in new directions. You walk into rooms differently. You engage with people from a different posture. And the world, always listening to your vibration, responds accordingly. This is not a process of becoming someone else. It's a return to who you were before you were told otherwise. The highest version of you is not outside of you. It's buried beneath layers of fear, doubt, and repetition. Your job is not to fabricate a new identity. It is to strip away the lies that made you think you were anything less than enough. The self-speech you hold is either a reflection of truth or of illusion. The more you align with the truth that you are already whole, already valuable, already capable, the more the illusion dissolves. And in its place, the life you once thought was impossible begins to emerge. Everything starts with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as powerful, your choices reflect power. If you see yourself as worthy, you won't entertain what dishonors that worth. If you see yourself as abundant, you stop chasing and start receiving. You stop clinging to things out of fear. You stop accepting crumbs when you know you're meant for more. That's what a healthy self-image does. It sets the tone for everything you allow into your life. And when you hold that tone consistently, the world adapts. It's not always instant. There will be moments where your new self-image is tested, where the old narrative tries to pull you back. But these are not failures. They're invitations to stand firm in your new identity. They are reminders that growth often comes with discomfort. You might be tempted to shrink again, to doubt yourself, to return to the familiar version of you that the world was used to. But that is the exact moment where transformation is happening. When you choose to hold your new image, despite the evidence around you, you are telling life, this is who I am now. And life, loyal to your self-concept, begins to shift. You must understand that life is not personal. It is reflective, it is obedient, it is impartial. It doesn't reward hard work alone, it rewards belief. It doesn't respond to effort, it responds to identity. You can try with all your might to change your world, but if you do not change how you see yourself, you'll find yourself stuck in the same cycles. Different faces, different places, but the same experience. The self begins as the root. Everything else is fruit. When you carry the self-impression, the prize, you no longer settle for being tolerated. You expect to be celebrated. You no longer try to fit in. You know you belong. You do not chase after opportunities. You magnetize them. And it's not because you're trying harder. It's because you're embodying truth. The truth that says, I am not an option. I am the standard. I am one of many. I am one of one. This is not arrogance. It is remembrance. It is power clothed in humility. It is confidence born from alignment. You must ask yourself, what kind of life would someone like me live if I truly believed I was the prize? What would I allow? What would I release? What would I expect? What would I never tolerate again? And then, without waiting for permission, begin to live as that person. Do not wait for your circumstances to catch up. Begin now. Hold that image as if it were already true. Speak from it. Move from it. Think from it. Because the longer you hold it, the more the world begins to shape itself to match it. There is no greater work you will ever do than the work of transforming your self-position. It is the root of your relationships, your success, your peace, your power. Every outer battle becomes easier when the inner image is made whole. Because when you see yourself as already worthy, you don't fight for your place, you simply take your seat. When you see yourself as already enough, you don't ask for more. You receive it naturally. When you know who you are, the world cannot help but rise to meet you there. And that is the unseen force that begins to move on your behalf. Your belief is the only permission you need, not the validation of others, not the applause of a crowd, not the approval of those who never saw your worth in the first place. You do not need a sign, a signal, or a green light from the world to begin stepping into your highest self. The moment you believe you are allowed, you are. The moment you decide you are worthy, you are. The universe does not wait for external authorization. It waits for your internal agreement. And when that agreement is made, all of reality begins to cooperate. You've been taught that you must earn your place, qualify for your dreams, prove your worth to be seen, loved, or chosen. But the truth is, nothing begins until you believe it's already yours. Every experience you've had is shaped not by effort alone, but by the permission you gave yourself to receive it. If you do not believe you can be loved deeply, no amount of love from others will feel real. If you do not believe success is meant for you, every opportunity will feel too good to be true. If you do not believe you are allowed to be happy, every joy will feel fleeting. But the moment you say yes from within, everything begins to shift. Your belief creates the container. It sets the parameters for what is possible in your life. And if you've only ever given yourself permission to have just enough, to be just tolerated, to survive but never thrive, then that is all life can deliver. It's not because life is cruel, but because life is obedient. It listens to your inner command and organizes itself around it. If your belief is small, your experience is small. If your belief is bold, your experience expands. It has no will of its own, it simply reflects. You've been waiting for someone to see your value before you step into it, waiting for someone to call you worthy before you dare to believe it. But what if they never do? What if the world is just holding its breath, waiting for you to make the first move? What if your courage to believe is the very thing that sets it all in motion? You've waited long enough. The door you're waiting to be opened has always been unlocked. It only responds to your touch. And your touch is the belief that you belong on the other side of it. Nothing in life begins until you believe it does. Belief is not a wish. It is not a vague hope. It is an assumption so deep, so unshakable, that it carries itself with quiet authority. You do not shout it. You do not argue for it. You simply live as if it is already so. That is what opens the floodgates. That is what causes people to treat you differently. That is what causes the atmosphere around you to bend in your favor, not because you demanded anything, but because your inner world gave permission.